Welcome to the Dig It Kids workshop, The Potty Stone Age. I'd like to thank the Heritage Council for its Heritage in Schools sponsorship of this workshop. Today is all about the Stone Age in Ireland, and Steve is going to tell us some interesting things about Stone Age hunter-gatherers and how they differ from another time period in the Stone Age of the Neolithic, or what we call the farming Stone Age. And Francesca is going to tell us about the history of pottery and where the very first types of ceramics or pottery were made. And then we're on to our craft. We're all going to make some pottery that's going to look like what archaeologists dig up in the ground, it's like 5,000 years old. So we're going to make an Irish Neolithic piece of pottery. Of course, when archaeologists find it, it's all crumpled up and old and broken. And the materials you'll need for that can be found on our website, www.digitkids.ie. Later, as you're making your pottery, I'll be telling you a story about the first girl in Ireland who invented farming. So that'll be fun. But right now, it's over to you, Steve. Tell us some really interesting things about the Stone Age in Ireland.
Hey everyone, my hair is getting longer and longer and longer, but I'm not brave enough. I cut my son's hair and I've decided that I'm not good at cutting hair, so I think I'll leave mine grow. But anyway, enough about me. We're going to talk about the potty Stone Age, and Lisanne said we, but that was her idea. She can take all the credit, stroke responsibility for that title. But anyway, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get going. Okay, so the potty Stone Age. So I'm actually going to bring you back to somewhere where we've been many times in these workshops, and it's my friend Marion. Do you remember my friend Marion? Well, Marion was the person who studied that bare bone in Alice and Gwendolyn Cave. Now, I need to say that Marion never really set out to study bare bones or to study ancient peoples and stuff like that. But eventually she caved in.
Oh!
But can you remember from when we talked about Marion, how long there have been people in Ireland? So have there been people in Ireland for 2,000 years, 12,500 years, or 2 million years? Let's see. Well, the answer is 12,500 years, but I put down at least, because it is at least. If you think about it, before Marion's discovery in that cave, we thought that people arrived in Ireland about 10,000 years ago. So suddenly it was even older. So I'm sure there were people here before, we just haven't found evidence of them before. But those people who first came to Ireland, what did they do? Were they accountants? Were they farmers, or were they hunter-gatherers? Oh, you guys are too smart. You know stuff. They were hunter-gatherers, but not that sort of hunter. They hunted animals with spears and bows and arrows, and they gathered. Gathering was just as important to gather nuts and berries and things that you could eat. So many things that you can eat. Even today in the wild, there's so many things you can eat. But in Ireland, sometimes we call them fisher-gatherers because there was so much fish in Ireland because we're an island and we have so many rivers and lakes. Actually, about 80% of the meat that the people ate back then, 10,000 years or so in Ireland, was fish. And here's a drawing, a really cool drawing of what we think a village would have looked like in the Mesolithic period, say 10,000 years ago when there were hunter-gatherers. And the Mesolithic means the Middle Stone Age. So it's before tools were, before metal was invented, and really, really quite a primitive life, but they were very sophisticated in what they did. So they had their houses and they lived quite a simple life. And you might remember I showed you a picture of the Irish National Heritage Park. Those of you in Wexford will recognize that. That's the Mesolithic village in the Heritage Park in Wexford. And that's a really cool place to go and explore and to get a sense of what it would have been like in one of those villages. And in the Heritage Park, they've reconstructed it using a thatched roof, using reeds, whereas they might have used animal skins as well. So we're not exactly sure what they used in all circumstances. But then, dun, 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 something happened that changed everything in the world. Something happened. We were living for tens of thousands of years. People lived life as a hunter-gatherers, and then something happened. I want you to tell me, what was that? Was it farming? Was it an alien attack? Or was it that the dinosaurs became extinct? I can't trick any of you guys. I thought these were very plausible answers. Of course, it's farming. And it's really hard to understand, to get your head around how big a change it was when we had farming, when farming was invented. It's such an important thing. And I thought the nicest way to do it was to take the same artist did a really cool drawing of what a village or a place would have looked like in the Neolithic in Ireland. So we called it the New Stone Age, the Neolithic in Ireland. And the Mesolithic was where the hunter-gatherers were. So the Middle Stone Age. So it's all stone tools, but can you spot some differences? I made the pictures a little bit bigger. So let's get some difference between a Neolithic settlement and a Mesolithic settlement. So a hunter-gatherer society and a farming society. So in the Mesolithic, they sort of cleared an area and they all lived in that area, and they sort of, all their activities were in that one open area. Whereas in the Stone Age, when they were, or in the Neolithic, when they were farming, they had to make fields for crops and fields for animals, and they divided all their land into different fields so that they could do different things in different fields. Just like farmers nowadays have fields for different activities, that's happened since in Ireland since about 6,000 years ago. We've had people living like this. Another thing is the houses. I saw people definitely spotted that. The houses in the New Stone Age, when they were farmers, were much more robust, much stronger. They were built to last. And the reason they were built to last is because people stayed in the one place all year round. Whereas in the Mesolithic, they used to have to travel around and visit and follow animals as they moved. And because everything was seasonal, they wouldn't build permanent settlements or places they would live for very long periods of time. Let's see something else. The animals. One of the most important things that happened when farming came is they learned to, we could say, domesticate animals. So they learned that you could keep animals, and you could, if you kept a cow, rather than hunting a cow and killing it, if you kept a cow, you could milk it, it could have young and you could eat the young rather than killing the cow and just hunting it. So you can keep your animals, and milking a cow and getting the milk products is a very, very valuable source of proteins and energies, whereas in the Mesolithic, they just hunted animals. And then the last one I wanted to show you is this, and this harks back to the project we did 2 sessions ago on Newgrange. And because in the farming communities in the New Stone Age, in the Neolithic, they had what's known as surplus. So because of their farming techniques and because they were able to stay in one place for a long period of time, not everybody had to worry about getting food all the time. Whereas in the hunter-gatherers, everyone had to be concerned about that. So there was a bit of time to do crazy stuff like build incredible monuments like Newgrange. So people would have specialized in different activities, different things. And what's really cool nowadays is we now have archaeologists who specialize in different things. So for example, my own speciality, I'm an archaeologist, but my own speciality is on stone tools. And that's because I rock. But there are specialists in all sorts of things, like there are specialists in bones. So they're called osteoarchaeologists or bioarchaeologists. And I'm wondering, can you think, what do you call a person who studies the bones of dogs who lived in the past? Let's see.
I'm afraid to know the answer.
It's a archaeologist. A archaeologist. Okay. So, and of course, an archaeologist who studies pottery is just potty. But no, they're called ceramic specialists. They just have a big word to make themselves sound fancy. But are you ready to make some pottery? But first, before we do that, you need to agree to listen well, to do your best and keep smiling, okay? Because pottery making isn't easy. If you want to become good at it,
Uh-oh.
you've got to earn it.
Oh no.
Earn it, earn it. Okay, that's enough from me. Francesca knows an awful lot more about pottery than I do, so she's going to give you another short presentation just about pottery now. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and she's going to get to work on that.
There you go.
Hello guys, thanks Steve. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen now and we'll talk very briefly about how and what and where about pottery. So we see a little bit about how it was made and when it was invented. So many questions. So I'll share my screen with you. There we are. So we are speaking about pottery today because it was a really big invention from the Neolithic, as Steve said. And pottery is the most common thing in the world. We all know it. Plates, pots, mugs, bowls, cups, you name it. We all know it and use it. And we have our kitchens full of it. And no one wants ever to wash them. Am I right? And yes, we all know our cereal bowl. We have it every morning and it looks very familiar. But pretty much like everything else, even pottery changed with the passing of time. Like our clothes, the fashion, our toys, everything changes. And I am pretty sure you all remember that cupboard grandma does not want you to touch at all, full of cups and old bowls. They look very different from the ones we have at home, right? And that's the thing, everything changes during time. So going back in time, this would have been a common pottery 200 years ago. And going back in time, this one, and going back in time as well, and again, and again, and the Greek ones, can you imagine how crazy they were with the decorations? And then Iron Age, Bronze Age, and finally, again, going back in time, thousands of years, we arrive at the Neolithic, the Stone Age, the one that we are talking about today. And we are going to make our own Neolithic bowl. So, in the Neolithic, as Steve said, they invented farming and they had to make tons and tons of pottery. And then, of course, they would have broken it like we do today. It happens so many times. I broke so many bowls and dishes in my life. I'm pretty sure it happened to you as well. And that's what we find as archaeologists. Tons and tons and tons of broken pottery. And that's important because it tells us a lot about how they lived, what they ate. And can you imagine how many times you use your bowls and dishes every day? And what do you eat in them? So it's a really important information for us. But have you ever wondered where was invented and when and how is it made? If you did, well, stop right there. You are in the right place. Let's discover it together, okay? So, first thing first, where? We are in Ireland, Dublin. We know that, well, Ireland. And the oldest pottery was discovered in China, in a cave, a narrow, gloomy cave, where people lived back in the days, as Steve was saying before. But when it was invented, 16,000 years ago. Can you imagine? That's so long ago. So long ago. But then people, men and women, invented farming. And like Steve said again, everything changed. And you all discover everything about farming with Lisanne's story. But with more food came more responsibilities and also need for more storage. So they had to make more bowls and pots and pottery. How did they? First thing first, with what? Clay. This is how clay looks like in nature. These are clay deposits and they are found everywhere. So they would have collected them close to home, close to their village. And it looks like oozy mud and it feels like modeling clay, basically. And also, it was a great resource, defended and protected. Can you imagine your life without plates and bowls? Where would you eat and keep your snacks? So it was important for them as well. But how was it made? So today we use the potter's wheel, and industrially we use molds like this one. But back in the days, and certainly during the Stone Age, they would have used this method, coil construction is called. And that's what we are doing today. So they would have made a long snake with clay, and they would have started building their bowl, placing one snake, and the name is coil, on top of the other because it goes in spirals, right? And they would have gone until reaching the size and shape they wanted. Then they would have smoothened the surface and sides with their hands and water, so the signs of the snake will disappear, like this. And then, of course, like we did today, they would have decorated it with shells, sticks, combs, even their fingers, whatever they would have handy. And they would have pressed their tools onto the soft clay like this. And they would have, like, they love their decorations. Can you see here? Like, there are so many different decorations. All these bowls, by anyway, they were found in Ireland, in Neolithic sites, in Neolithic archaeological sites. Pretty much like the one that is here behind me. This is Carrowkill, by the way. It's a passage tomb, a Neolithic passage tomb in Ireland. And this bowl, by the way, was found exactly inside this tomb. So after the decoration, they would have cooked it because otherwise it would have stayed soft and they couldn't have used it. And they would have cooked it in their campfire. They would have put it in the campfire and they would have reached 600, 700 degrees. Can you imagine? That's like really hot, 4 times the temperature of your oven almost. This is really hot. Like, whew, guys. And since they would have cooked it in the campfire, they would have put inclusions or grit. That's the name of these little things you find here, you see here. And these would have made the clay rougher, so the texture would have been like sandpaper, not as smooth as the one you have at home today, that we all have at home today. And the grit or inclusions would have been basically whatever you can imagine, like crushed shells, crushed bones, crushed rocks, whatever. But why would I put something like this in the clay? Well, there were two very good reasons. One is because they would have made the clay and the pottery, of course, more resistant. And the other is because it would have avoided explosions in the fire, and that would have been so dangerous. So definitely you don't want that to happen. So now, are we ready to start our craft? We are going to make our own Stone Age bow, like with a coil construction, of course, and we will decorate it. So this is the material that you need for your craft: 150 grams of flour, 150 grams of powdered table salt, 100 milliliters of water, or Play-Doh or modeling clay if you want, actually. But if you want to make it from scratch, that could be an idea. And also a teaspoon of grit, because we are going to put our inclusions as well. For us, the inclusion would be represented by, I don't know, like poppy seeds or cumin seeds, bulgur wheat, ground pepper, anything that you have at home that is small and dark and that can add a rough texture to your clay, okay? And then we will decorate it with some tools like a barbecue skewer or a toothpick that will be our stick, our fingers, of course, as well, as they did in the past, or a seashell or a sharp stone. And again, everything that comes handy, because they would have done the same. And then when we are done, we will put our bowl in the oven and we will cook it like they did in their campfire. Okay, are we ready to start? Now I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll pass the screen to Steve, who is going to do the craft with you guys while I'm giving you the instructions. And then Lisanne will tell us another amazing story. I can't wait for it. Okay? Bye, guys.
So I'm going to follow Francesca's instructions, and and you'll just see my amazing work.
Okay, so are we all ready to start the craft? I think so, hopefully, yes. That's perfect. So Steve, first thing first, measure 150 grams of flour and 150 grams of salt.
So I put my bowl down and then set it to 0, and now I'm going to put in flour with a spoon. Okay, I've got my flour in.
Perfect. Then put 150 grams of salt and mix
That's
it.
a lot of salt. This would not be tasty.
No, don't eat this thing, guys. Like the new Grange one, it would be disgusting and not very good for you, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness, it's so much.
It's 300 grams of stuff. That's...
Got it.
Perfect. Okay, so now you put half teaspoon of your grit, whatever you have. So guys, to sum it up, you can use poppy seeds, cumin seeds, bulgur wheat, ground pepper, something small and dark, whatever small and dark thing that you have at home. Don't use the peppercorn because it would be too big, and so when you knead your dough, it wouldn't stay firm, but it would break. Let's see what else.
The thing about the grits, is this does not really affect the pottery we're making. We're just doing this so that when you have your pot and when our pots are made, you'll see the little flecks and you'll be able to explain to your friends what that was for, because obviously they didn't use pepper and poppy seeds. They used bits of stones. It's like I'm seasoning it. They used bits of stones and stuff like that to stop it breaking. But this is just so we'll remember that, not that learning that we had. So I got a bit of pepper, I got some poppy seeds, I've got some cumin seeds.
Nice. So yeah, they would have put everything, like everything they had handy. So we are doing the same basically. And then you mix it well.
I'm just using a spoon.
With a spoon. Well, I see a metal spoon, Steve. We are in the Stone Age.
Oh. Sorry.
Good job. Exactly.
Nobody saw.
Now you measure 100 milliliters of water and pour it, add it to the mixture, but very slowly, little bit at a time, little bit at a time. Yeah, perfect. And then mix again. And then when the water is completely absorbed, pour a little bit more water. And then mix again until it's coming together, basically. And you can work it with your hands. So keep adding water, Steve. And basically you have to have a bowl of dough that has the consistency of your Play-Doh or the modeling clay. Again, we are making clay after all.
Depending on the type of flour you use and the type of salt, you might need a little bit more or a little bit less. But if you add it slowly, then you won't, it'll be all right. So I think mine's still a little bit dry. Oh no, I don't know.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
You can, actually, if you're not sure, guys, and Steve, you as well, touch it with your hands. Try to put it together with your hands. If it stays, maybe it's ready, and then you just have to work it with your hands.
Mine's still a little dry.
Okay. Then, guys, if yours is dry as well, add a little bit of water. Just be sure to not add too much water altogether, because then you have to put other flour, and then you will end up with a huge amount of sourdough. See, that can happen. And, you know, I'm pretty sure that they made mistakes in the past as well. They were trying to, you know, they invented the pottery as well. So they had to try and try and try until they had the right consistency.
Yeah.
We are really, really being realistic here.
Except they didn't make pots out of flour.
No. Well, okay, as much realistic as we can, I suppose.
Okay, mine's coming together now. So I just keep kneading it.
Perfect. Exactly. So now knead it with your hands. You need to knead, as we said 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. If you ever make pizza, you have to sing, because singing makes the pizza taste nicer. That is a proven fact.
Yep. Well, everything, if you are singing, is better.
Spoken like a true Italian.
Oh, I meant to say, you know, that those first Mesolithic people, the hunter-gatherers, there was a family of hunter-gatherers that signed up to do the Digger Kids workshops. And when we did the, when we set up today's meeting, they were waiting 30 minutes before the start. It was early man.
Oh my goodness.
So that was a joke, and anybody who needs it explained, well, we're gonna go ha 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 ha.
I can make craft and tell jokes.
Hey, I saw someone asking for more dad jokes.
Yes.
Be careful what you ask for. You may end up having it.
Well, I was studying for my archaeology exams, and then I realized there was no point because my future was already in ruins.
Yeah, that's a very good archaeology joke. You know the way archaeology is all in ruins. Ha 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 ha.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay, are we all done with the dough? So we can go on with the craft.
I'm going to put a bit of flour down on my counter.
That's a good idea. Otherwise, the dough will stick to your counter. Very good idea. Nice trick. So Steve, keep kneading so that the dough is really, really nice and elastic as it should be. And we will all keep kneading.
Can you see my grids?
Oh yes, these are cool, guys. Yes, yes, yes. Can you see those?
Okay, so now what do I do?
So now we should prepare our mold to build up our bowl.
So this is what I have. I have 2 little bowls.
Perfect. And you grease the mold, otherwise the dough will stick to it when it cooks.
Got some butter.
And with the butter or oil.
So what are you doing right now, Steve?
I just got some butter.
Yeah.
And I'm smushing it all over the outside of the bowl because now they wouldn't have done it this way, but because we're using salt dough instead of real pottery, we're doing a little bit of a cheat, and we're going to use a bowl to mold our clay dough, our salt dough around. So I'm just smearing butter all over it so that it doesn't stick to it.
Exactly.
I'm going to do 2 of them.
And add also a little bit of flour.
Yes, I'll do that now. In a second, I wanted to do all the butter first. So put smudgy, smudgy, smudgy.
Okay, so now we have, again, they wouldn't have had cupcake tins or mold or stuff like this. They would have just started with a snake, but again, we are using salt dough, so we have to do with what we have. That is perfect.
Now do I take a piece?
Now you take a little piece of it, well, maybe half of it, that's perfect. Otherwise it will break. The longest the snake, the easiest it breaks. And you start making a snake. It should be thick as a pencil, or actually better, a marker. Otherwise the pencil would be too thin and it will break easily. So the thickness of a marker.
I realized that I need my breadboard because it's
put it a little bit, yeah, perfect.
Yep. The reason is that the salt on the countertop, the salt dough was slipping, so I wasn't able to roll it.
Right. You just make snakes. And so now we are going to, once your snake is ready, you just start rolling, and let's say yeah, exactly, you'll put it around your bowl, cupcake tin, whatever you had for your mold.
Mine's
and
a little
if it's
dry.
not sticking, use a little bit of water.
So what I'm doing is I'm not making a circle, I'm making a coil. So when I get to the end here, I just put it on top.
Yeah.
That right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so you build up your bowl and you make another snake, and then you start and you put it where the last snake ended. And if it doesn't stick to the end of the first snake, just wet your fingers and wet the dough so it will stick better. Let's all make snakes and listen to Lisanne's story.
It's kind of fun sometimes to listen to a story while you're busy doing something with your hands, okay? So this is a story that I wrote about about a little girl. and I called it Life Changed Forever. Fola was 9 years old when her brother Ugg broke his leg. On that day, she couldn't have imagined how much her life would change forever. After Ugg broke his leg, the family stayed in one place and settled down and lived there for a very long time in Loch Gur in County Limerick. And the way that they lived changed too. Fola's was the very first family in Ireland to plant seeds, to start a garden, and the very first family to start growing their own food. So Fola's family started the whole idea of farming and growing food in the whole of Ireland. Nobody had ever thought of that before, and Fola's family became very famous. And all the other families copied them because they wanted to learn how to farm too. So I'm going to tell you the story of how that happened. Although Fola was 9 years old, she and her family had already moved 20 times in the 9 years that she had been alive. That's a lot of moving, but that's what everyone did back then. Fola's family were a part of the Owen clan. And like everyone in Ireland at the time, they were hunter-gatherers, and they moved their homes regularly. They moved when the adults decided that food was far too hard to find, so they'd gather up their things and move to another place, somewhere where there was more food, more animals to hunt, and where there was plenty of fish and food to be found if you knew where to look for it. They would move by walking or paddling little boats along the rivers. Fola lived with her mom and her dad and her little brother Ugg and her granny and granddad. Next door, her cousins lived there. And sorry, her cousins lived next door. And Fola was really good at finding food. Fola and Ugg would go with their mother, who would teach them what which berries were good to eat and which berries to never ever touch because they were poisonous. And they would collect birds' eggs, and they would dig roots of the plants that were good to eat, a little bit like dandelions. They have big, long roots. And in the summertime, they would collect little green seeds from the tops of grasses. And they would gather up the seeds into a leather bag. And they collected leaves and flowers that were good to eat. And in the summertime, they would gather hazelnuts and acorns from the trees and bring them home. And their mother would put their food into a store so they'd have food to eat in the wintertime. But their favorite food to find was honey. It was made by bees and it was delicious. You see, back then there wasn't chocolate or gummy bears or sweets so back then at all. So honey was their sweet treat. And Ugg and Fola loved it. The men and the older boys in the clan would go fishing and hunting, so there was always fish and meat for dinner most days. But you know what? There were no refrigerators back then, so they had to put the fish and the meat into a smoke hut so that it would sort of half cook and dry. Because if they didn't do that, there would be a terrible smell because the meat would go bad and it was really stinky. But the meat from the smoke hut was good. But you know what? It was really hard to chew. It wasn't easy and soft meat like a hamburger. It really actually took quite a long time to chew through the hard smoked meat, and even the fish that was smoked was quite hard. But Fola's family were always helping one another. You see, there were no schools in those days, so the adults had to take turns teaching the children all the sort of things that children needed to learn. There were dangerous wild beasts in the forests around their huts. But Aoife was the safety boss in the clan, so she taught the children about the danger of wild animals. You must beware of wolves and bears, Aoife would tell them, and don't ever go near the bear caves. And if you see a bear coming, climb up a tree really high up to the top, so where it can't get you. And of course, the children weren't allowed to go out of the camp without permission either. And sometimes there wasn't very good listening when Aoife was talking. So Aoife would stick her lip out and she would raise one eyebrow and she'd give the children a sort of a squinty-eyed look. And usually that was enough for the children to go, shh, 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 shh. And then she could teach her lessons again. Fola was a really clever girl, so she used to ask Aoife lots of questions. One day, when Fola and Ugg were outside their hut playing, a wee little bird with a yellow breast and a bright red beak started to squawk at them. Yep, cheeping at them. It seemed like the bird was trying to tell them something. Fola thought, that's really weird. So she went inside to tell her mom. Mom, there's a little bird outside that keeps coming really close to us, and it's cheeping at Ugg and me. I think the bird wants us to follow it. Fola's mom looked outside and was delighted, and she cried out, Fola, you clever girl. You understand that bird correctly. That's a honey guide bird. You and Ugg must follow the bird, and he will lead you to a place where there will be a beehive full of honey. You're to follow him carefully. And when you get there, it's really important you listen to me now. You're only allowed to take half of the honey from the hive. You must leave the other half of the honey for the bees because they need that to live. And then, after you've taken your honey, you must give a share to the bird. That's how you thank the bird, and it's important. You must always give the bird a share of your honey. So Fola and Ugg followed the bird, and the little honey guide bird flew from branch to branch, stopping to cheep at the two children. Basically, the bird was saying to them, hurry up. Bird led them away from the camp and far, far into the forest. The bird took them to a small stream, and they had to cross the stream over a little log that had fallen over it. They balanced by sticking out their arms and walking really slowly, one foot in front of the other, until they made it safely across. And meanwhile, the little honey bird was shrieking at them impatiently to hurry along. Cheep, cheep, cheep. They went a long way until eventually the bird started to fly around and round and round a tree, calling the children to come and see. And there it was, a beehive in the low branches. The children were delighted. So they made some smoke and put it on a stick, and they waved the stick with the smoke around the hive in order to put the bees to sleep. And Fola climbed up the tree, waving the smoky stick, and she reached into the hive and took half of the honey. She passed the honey down to Ugg and climbed back down the trees. Well, the two children had never tasted more delicious honey. They thanked the honey guide bird by leaving a great big blob of honey on a plate they made out of a big broad leaf. The honey guide bird seemed satisfied, and the children made their way home. The whole Owen clan thanked the children for the honey. They were allowed to tell the story of how they found it at the campfire that night. A couple of weeks passed, and all the honey was long since finished. One day, Ugg spotted the same little honey bird and called out to him, and he decided he would go after him again.
In the meantime, I can tell you guys, remember to smooth the sides of your bowl,
I'm going to
wetting
use
your
a little bit of water,
fingers.
wet my fingers.
Exactly, using a little bit of water with your fingers and put it on the sides of your bowl and see, like Steve is doing, just smooth the snakes so all the edges of the snake disappear. And so the bowl is nice and smooth, as smooth as it can be with the grit on it, right?
Great.
And
It's quite a tricky thing to do.
it
Just do it
is.
gently. I'm doing it very gently and just rubbing my fingers on it.
Exactly. And don't use too much water, otherwise it will come off,
Yes.
of course. And then we will let it dry a little bit, just a few minutes. And so we can start with the decoration.
Steve, would you do it on the one that you've practiced on?
Okay.
First?
I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the one I practiced because I probably put a little bit too much water on it. So I'm just
That's
going
a
to
good idea.
sprinkle a little flour on it because I think I made it a little bit too wet.
And so now we have to decorate our bowls. So do you remember what I said before? So they would use different things, whatever they had handy, really. So what do you have, Steve, today?
I've got a few things. I have a barbecue skewer.
Okay.
I have a pencil, which every Neolithic person had a pencil, of course
Of
not,
course.
but we all have a pencil. I do have some cool things because I'm an archaeologist. I have an antler.
Nice. That would have been something that would have used for sure.
And I have a flint arrowhead. Haha. And I have a really
Nice.
important stone. That stone came from a place called Bullia in the north of Ireland that they used to make stone axes, but it's just a
Nice.
sharp stone. And then I have something from the past.
Oh my goodness.
From the
Okay.
past.
See,
All
guys.
right, smarty, smarty, funny,
Yeah.
funny.
Well, the
So
reason I have it is I don't have a shell.
yes, exactly. It looks like a shell, at least the edge.
Yeah, so it's this bit I'm interested in. That
Exactly.
jaggedy bit here.
So let's say we can do layers, different layers with different tools, so we can all see how they would have worked. So let's start with the barbecue skewer now.
Yeah, and your pencil would do, the sharp end of your pencil would do just as well.
Exactly. And just do dotted lines with your barbecue skewer. So just make dots in your, in your bowl like this, and you can just put them in line. Exactly. Perfect. So then maybe we can change it. We can change the tool.
Okay.
And we can see the antler.
So this would be, this is just a thicker pencil. You could use the back of a pencil.
Yes, and you can do lines also with this.
Okay, like this. You're able to see that? I'll do it on this side.
Yeah. Exactly. You can do vertical lines, horizontal lines. So now we can use the shell, or of course the farfalle pasta, as Steve is doing. And so with the edge, we can just press it on the bowl, making patterns. And Steve, you can do like this, or you can do it horizontally. Yes, and the shell, of course, will be even curver, so it will make another pattern. And then with all your tools, you can just decorate all the sides, all the surface of your bowl. So it will be all decorated like the ones that we saw before from the Neolithic.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish smoothing this bowl, and then I'm going to use different patterns. So you can watch me and I'll just swap between the different ones, and you can copy me as I'm doing it. And remember, this is about art. This is art. This is about decorating the way you like it. So it's up to you to do it. And maybe Lisanne could tell her story while I'm finishing off my bowls. Is that a good idea?
That's a great idea.
So where had we left off in the story? I know the children had been really lucky and a little honey guide bird had led them to a beehive and they had gotten some honey. And I had just mentioned that the next time that Ugg saw the honey guide bird, he followed it up Knockdara Hill, which is near Loch Gur, and it means the oak hill, and he followed it and he followed it, and eventually, when he got there, he had to go. He had to go by himself because Fulla wasn't around. Now, Ugg's mother had said to him to be really careful going by himself and to be sure to thank the bird, that he must always thank the bird, never forget that. And he had no trouble following the honey guide bird, because of her little yellow breast. She was quite easy to see. But the higher he got up the hill, the more Ugg grew tired. Eventually, the little honey guide bird started to fly round and round an old tree, and sure enough, the little bird had led him correctly, and there was a large beehive in the tree. Ugg climbed into the tree with a smoldering stick, waving it so that all the bees would go to sleep. And he remembered to take only half of the honey and to leave the rest for the bees. But as he climbed down, Ugg forgot to hold the smoking stick near the beehives. And some of the bees woke up and were cross that their hive had been raided. And so 3 grouchy bees stung Ugg on his arms and leg, and it hurt. And Ugg yelped, and he ran down the forest path to get away from the angry bees as fast as he could, carrying his honey with him. But guess what? Ugg had forgotten to thank the honey guide bird, and she squawked after him grumpily. "Cheater, cheater, cheater," the bird said as she flew after him, calling for her share. But Ugg, with his sore bee stings, didn't stop running until he got home, and the bird gave up for now, but was determined that Ugg would learn his lesson for not being polite and not sharing his honey. But Ugg forgot all about the little bird. So the next time that Ugg saw the honey guide bird, he followed it again up Knockdara Hill, and the bird took him in a different direction, right up to the top. And as he got higher, he stopped to look over the view of Loch Gur and his family camp. But the bird took him higher and higher until it flew into a dark cave. She cheeped at him to hurry up, and Ugg came quickly into the cave. Ugg had never been there before, and there was an awful smell in the cave. Ew! And then Ugg could hear something moving in the cave. It didn't sound like the bird. It didn't sound like the bees in the hive. It sounded like a bear, a bear, a bear, a big, brown, terrifying bear that was waking up and seeing a small boy in his cave. A small boy that looked like he would make a delicious lunch for a bear. That tricky little bird had led Ugg directly into danger, and Ugg realized it was because he had forgotten to thank her the last time by giving her a share of his honey. The bear started to move towards Ugg, and Ugg ran, and he ran and he ran, and the bear ran after him. Ugg tried to remember what Aoife had told him what to do as he was being chased by a dangerous animal. Oh, he wished he had listened better, because he was running as fast as he could, down, 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 down Knockdara Hill, with the bear galloping after him. And the bear growled a big roar. And Ugg was terrified. And the sound of the bear's roar carried all over the valley. Oh yes, Ugg remembered Aoife had said to climb a tree, so Ugg nearly flew up the nearest tree. It was lucky he was such a good climber. He got up there, up high, 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 out of reach of the bear. And he sat on a branch and he watched the big brown bear circle around the bottom of the tree. The honey guide bird cheeped one last time in a scolding chirp, and he flew away. The bear scratched himself along the trunk of the tree, rubbing himself back and forth so that the whole tree shook and swayed. But Ugg held on and didn't fall. After a long time, the bear gave up and wandered off back up the hill to its den in the cave. But Ugg was too afraid to move. Ugg was afraid the bear would come back and eat him for lunch. So he stayed in the tree. Ugg's mother and Fola and some of the other hunters set off to find Ugg because they had heard the bear's roar. So they climbed up the tree because they climbed up the hill, because that's where the bear's cave was. So they all carried spears in case the bear would come when they went searching for Ugg. They found Ugg cold and hungry up a very high branch of the trees. "Come down, Ugg. You're safe now," his mother said. So Ugg began to climb down. But it was far easier for Ugg to get up the tree than it was to get down. It was actually quite difficult and dangerous coming down. Halfway down, disaster happened. A branch that Ugg was standing on gave way, and he fell out of the tree and onto the ground with a great crash. A howl of pain came out of Ugg's mouth as he hit the ground. And guess what? There was something very wrong with his leg. It seemed to be bending the wrong way at the knee, and it hurt a lot. Ugg's mother and sister ran to him and hugged him tight for dear life. "Your leg is broken, Ugg." Poor Ugg couldn't walk on his broken leg, so his family had to carry him down the hillside and back to their home. They strapped up his legs with animal skins and they put Ugg to bed. It was going to take a long time for Ugg's broken leg to heal. And in the meantime, Ugg wasn't going to be able to walk. A couple of days later, the hunters in the clan broke some bad news to the rest of the clan. "We need to move again." Everybody else groaned. "Oh no, move again. Oh no, move home again." But sadly, everybody knew that they had to. There just wasn't enough food around for a whole tribe to stay. There was no animals to hunt, and they needed meat to eat. So the very next day, the Owen clan began to pack up and get ready to go. And Fola's mom and dad explained to the rest of the clan that they couldn't go with them. "Sorry, but Ugg can't walk until his leg heals. And it's going to take a couple of months before he can walk far again." So Fola's family decided that they had to stay in their little camp at the lake at Loch Gur. And the rest of the clan agreed that it was for the best. They would all meet up again when Ugg was well. So the clan said goodbye, gathered up their belongings, and walked over the hill far away into the Adair Valley. And Fola's little family were left behind alone. As Ugg was recovering from his broken leg, he couldn't do any of the gathering food jobs. So he was really busy. He made fish traps and baskets, and then he would be able to catch fish in the lovely sort of crescent moon-shaped lake of Loch Gur. Fola and her mother gathered plants to eat with her. Fola was quite good, actually. She got really sharp eyes, so she could see the different colors of green and yellow and brown. And she always knew which of the foods were ripe and ready to pick. Fola waited until the hazelnuts in the tree had ripened to a dark brown before she picked them. And then when she did, she picked a whole sackload. Fola waited until the apples had turned a glossy red before she picked them off the trees. And the blackberries and the frockens, which are a little bit like blueberries, they grow in heather. And all the other berries they picked. They only picked them when they were very ripe and sweet. One day, they set out looking for ripened seeds from the grasses that grew around Nakdara. Her mother used to use the seed grains from the grasses to make porridge. They were looking for seed grains because she used to use them to make porridge. And they had porridge most mornings. But often the porridge was made from small little green seed grains which weren't quite ripe, and it tasted a bit bitter. It also, sometimes she made them from acorns, and that was a bit yucky as well. It wasn't very nice. But Fola looked over the hillside and she could see one type of grass that had large, ripe, brown seed grains. Now, she knew that was the type of seed grain that made the most delicious porridge. It was creamy and yummy, and they called that porridge Yamumptimiotsis. And Fola walked all over the hill, gathering the brown Yamumptimi oat seeds grain. Each stalk on those plants had loads of ripe brown grains, and she put them into a little basket that was lined so that so none of the seeds would fall out. And soon her basket was overloaded. Her mother praised her. "You've got such a good eye for this, Fola. These Yamumptimi oat seeds grains look deliciously ripe. Let's make them into porridge." So Fola and her mother started to cook. They first took turns crushing the grains, using a little round stone, rolling it over the seeds until they were all smushed. And then Fola's mom made the delicious Yamumptimi porridge. She added some honey and some frockens, which, as I say, were a little bit like blueberries. It was hot and delicious, and Ugg said that it was the best food that he had ever had in his whole life. So every day after that, Fola and her mother would go out to the hillsides to gather more of the Yamumptimi oat seeds grains. And she picked them only when they were just ripe. And they picked so many that when they would come back, they would put them into the smoking hut where they used to smoke the meat in order to dry the grain. And when the seeds were dry and hard, Fola would gather them up and put them into the little coiled pottery pots that were made out of clay that Ugg had made. Not unlike the ones that you're making, except that these clay pots had a tight lid on the top. And the tight lid meant that no bugs could get in and no other bad things like rats could get in. It also kept the Yamumptimi oats grain really dry, so it didn't go bad or it didn't taste stale or moldy or anything like that. So Ugg couldn't come with his mother and sister when they were collecting the Yamumptimi oats because of his broken leg, and it was still healing. But by now he could walk using a crutch made from a tree branch, but he was still hobbling as he walked along with the crutch. One day when he was walking on the crutch, his crutch caught by accident the edge of Fola's basket, which was full of the Yamumptimi oat grains, and he upended it, spilling the seed grains everywhere, all over the soil near the fireside. "Oh no," Fola said, "I've lost all of my seeds. They've all gone into the dirt. Well, I know where I'll get more." So the Yamumptimi oats seed fell into the soil, And what do seeds do when they lie in the soil for a while? Guess what? When the rain falls on them and the wind blows soft earth over them, they begin to grow. They started to sprout little green shoots. And after a few weeks, the Yamamtami oat seeds were growing into little big plants. And nobody had ever planted seeds before that. They started to grow bigger with long stems and large green leaves. Ug's leg finally got better, and he could walk and run again without the need for a crutch. And the clan came back to Loch Gur Lake that summer. And when they did, the Yamamtami oat plants were growing well. And they were curious as to where these plants had come from. So Fola showed the clan how these plants were different from the other grasses. These seeds, she says, the grains grow ripe and brown. And the plants have many more and bigger grains on them than the other grasses that grow on the hillsides. What's more, Fola said, what's more, what makes these grains really great is they don't blow away in the wind. They stick onto the plants until they're ripe, and that makes them much easier to gather. And when the little patch of Yamam seeds were ripe, Fola gathered all the grains and brought them to the clan meeting around the fire one evening. She said, "Hey, this took me only a short time to gather these grains. And look, there's enough here for us all, the whole clan, to eat porridge for a whole week. And guess what? I didn't have to go all over the hills finding these. That would have taken me weeks. So I have a great idea. Why don't we plant them on purpose right here in the valley? Why don't we put them in the soil where the ground is really good for plants? Then we won't have to go far away, and we can get enough Yamamtami oats to have porridge all year round. And that's if we get enough pots, make enough pots to store them in." Well, at first the hunters didn't like the idea of planting the Yamamtami oats. But guess what? They really did love the smooth and tasty porridge, and they decided they'd try to give it a go. So they all gathered Yamamtami grains, and they would eat some, and then they would keep some to throw the seed onto the ground and hope it would grow. Unfortunately, there were sharp-eyed birds around, and when they saw the seeds scattered on the ground, they began to eat them. So those first farmers, the Owen clan, the first people who tried to grow seeds on purpose, discovered that it was better to cover the seeds with soft soil so the birds didn't see it. And then the seeds would grow better. They also noticed that the seeds needed some rain or water to grow well. So all summer long, they watched with wonder as a huge field of Yamamtami oats grew. And the clan was happy knowing they would have plenty of porridge for a whole year. This planting of seeds was the great idea of Fola's. And they stayed at Loch Gur for year after planting the seeds. And they tried other seeds as well, emmer wheat. And they decided that for Fola's 12th birthday, the clan wanted to celebrate this clever girl who was an inventor. And they wanted to give her a special birthday present. "You invented something new," they said to her, "and all of our lives are changed for the better. The clan is better fed, and we want to thank you for that. And we want to thank you so that we don't have to move anymore all the time, and that we have delicious food to eat, because now we know how to plant seeds and we know how to make them grow." So the clan took the emmer wheat and they crushed them up. And they picked some beautiful apples and they sliced them up. And they picked some frockens, which I think I've told you are like blueberries. And they mixed it all together with some honey. And they made the first ever birthday cake. It was a sweet apple birthday cake. Now, that might not sound like the type of birthday cake you might like for your birthday, but it was the first birthday cake ever invented. And they sang a happy birthday song to Fola. And that night when she went to bed, oh, she was very happy and very full of delicious cake on her 12th birthday. And when she lay down to sleep that night, she thought about the time when her brother, Ugg, had broken his leg. And she wondered if they hadn't stayed by the lake, and if she hadn't gathered those yamumtumi oats, and if her brother hadn't knocked over her basket of seeds by accident, she wondered, would farming have started at all? And with that question in her head, Fola fell fast asleep. And that's the end of my story, guys. And so, Stephen, turn your thing back on and tell us whether you're finished.
That was amazing, Lisanne. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I love the story, and I wrote SM on the bottom of mine because it's Steve Mantle,
Of course.
just with little dots.
But they haven't actually invented writing back then.
I know,
No.
but I'm a very advanced stone man.
You are.
SM stone man.
Oh. So,
I've got some greaseproof paper.
exactly. So now that we are all done with the decoration, we just have to put it in the oven. So let's the parent do the heavy load, and they will turn on the oven and put the bowls in the oven. And
What temperature?
so the temperature would be 100 degrees, 150 degrees for 45 minutes. And then, of course, your parents will remove the bowl from the oven and the mold from the bowl, and then they will put back the bowl in the oven so the inside can cook as well. And so it will be put in the oven for other 20 minutes ish. And then don't worry if it's don't worry if it's not completely cooked, because you can leave it in the air and it will dry itself. But at least, you know, the oven speed up the process for sure.
Can I just say a little problem I'm having here that other people might be having? So I made these here on my board, and it's a little bit sticky. So I just used my barbecue skewers to sort of go all the way around so that it doesn't stick to the board. And then I can move it. I'm going to lift it up and move it like this. It's hard. You might need a parent to help you. I'm going to put it on my baking tray ready to go in, and I put it on greaseproof paper so it's easier. I'll do the same with my other one. So you see the way it's stuck a little bit. There we go. And when I put it on the greaseproof paper, I'll move this out of the way, I can sort of, it got a little bit squished and distorted. I can just touch it up a little bit because it won't have to move again until it's dry. So now it's good. So mine's ready to go in the oven.
Suggestion. Some parents said they have extra dough left over. So if you make a circle, a flat circle, you could kind of make a lid if you squashed down some extra dough. You could make a lid. You could also bake it in the oven on the tray if you have leftover dough. But you don't have to. You can just play with it and throw it out then.
Yes, I also had, now obviously they didn't have cling film in the Stone Age, but I had some, when I was practicing this during the week, I had some extra. So I just put it in cling film, folded it up and put it in the oven, in the fridge, and I was able to use it because I didn't have enough today. So it's sort of like Play-Doh that you've made yourself.
It is Play-Doh that you made yourself. So cool.
Okay, I'm going to put this in the oven and then go back to my desk.
Okay,
Switch.
that's
Okay.
well done, guys. That's great.
Do you remember when it's finished, you'll still be able to see the little black color, the little flecks of the grit that you put in. And that's a really important thing to remember. When people say, what are those? You can say, back in the old days, that when they made pottery, they added stone and shells and things so that the pottery wouldn't break. So that's a really cool way to remember why you put those grits in. And this is not going to be our last class. So we're having so much fun doing this. We're going to keep doing it while we can. So we have a few more crazy ideas. And I have more jokes.
Of course, the jokes never end.
So guys, we've come to the end of this session, but we'll be back for more. Say goodbye to you.
Hey everyone, it's been fun again. That was good. I like, myself and Francesca take turns to make the craft, and I like getting to make the craft. It's great fun. And I especially like listening to stories when I'm making a craft. It's a nice thing to do. So enjoy the rest of your weekends, and we'll see you next week.
And there's Francesca.
Bye, guys. It was awesome making this craft with you, and we are happy you enjoyed it. And thank you for joining us. And see you
Photos.
next week, of course.